All right, welcome to the Warriors Cast, your hub for everything Utah Warriors. I'm Jeremy Jordan alongside Banksy. And Banksy, this is our first one in 2020.
Happy New Year, bro.
It's a new decade. Happy New Year to you. The season is less than a month away. I can smell it now. I can smell the season.
And what does that smell like?
It smells like delicious cinnamon rolls. That's what it smells like.
Way to be like basic white person. It smells like cinnamon rolls? No, it smells like victory is what it smells like. It smells like success and hard work and victory. It doesn't smell like cinnamon rolls.
Maybe I'm hungry.
I'd expect that out of me. I'm the fat one. Not out of you,
maybe I
the
need
skinny guy.
A nice sirloin or something.
Smells like Cinnabon.
I love Cinnabon. Potential sponsorship opportunity there. Find us on
Cinnabon.
YouTube, Facebook, SoundCloud, IGTV, Apple Podcasts, and now Spotify. Nice job by Billy getting us on Spotify. Use the hashtag WarriorsCast for questions and comments. We will get to some of those later because we have a tremendous guest on the program, and let's talk about what's on the rundown. The latest from training. You've been there. I'm going to get there soon. You've been there. We'll talk about that in a moment. The boys are headed to Vegas today to take on Toronto at the end of the week. They're going to scrimmage with Rugby ATL. More on that in a moment. The season opener less than a month away, as mentioned, February 9th. Our player spotlight on the new scrum half. Dwayne Polataivao from Manu, Samoa, after his experience in the World Cup. Rugby 101 is about the backs, and we'll chat with the new head coach, the legend, Chris Latham, is in studio. It's going to be a fantastic show.
People throw the term legend around a lot, but you're talking about the second all-time leading try scorer in Australian rugby.
Unbelievable.
Played in, and I said this before, played in arguably the greatest game of rugby ever played. Look up the 2000 Bledisloe Cup decider match. It changed the game of rugby, the way that game was played. I mean, it brought it into the modern age, and it's some of the most entertaining rugby you'll see with some of the biggest names, and he scored 2 tries in that match.
Unbelievable. Unfortunately, New Zealand won in the end for the Aussies, but it was an incredible game. Right?
No, the right team won. Okay, the good guys won. Okay, I mean, sorry about it, Chris, but the good guys won. Latha is going to fight me later now.
All right, a note about season tickets. So one of the Warriors' home games is in Las Vegas in week 2, Saturday, February 15th at Las Vegas Ballpark against one of the new teams in the league, the New England Free Jacks. If you're a season ticket holder, you will get the same number of seats for that game in Vegas, February 15th, as you have at Zions Bank Stadium. The location is section 16 in the stadium. Reach out to carson.whitlock at warriorsrugby.com. That's carson.whitlock at warriorsrugby.com to place your request for season tickets with the quantity by February 5th. Okay, topic 1, preseason training. You've been out there. They've been training for 2 weeks. Chris Latham's been there for a week. What are you seeing? What do you think?
The first training session I went to was first of all, the attitude and the atmosphere, so much more positive. The guys are so much more emotionally relaxed and excited about, obviously, someone like Latho coming in and the experience that he brings, but just the energy, even in the weight room, even as the guys are hanging around, there's a lot of really positive energy that's floating around. The guys have come back so much healthier. Some of the big injuries from last year, obviously the Whippies, Tanata Lauti, so many of those guys that have come back. Sayo Hilo, who had the big bicep injury.
That's a legit injury.
When you tear your bicep off and you still finish the season,
that's unbelievable.
But the guys have come back in better shape. There's a lot of guys that have realized they need to put on some weight. The off-season accountability has been big, so they've come back in ready to go. So I went to an early training session, and then I was there for Coach Latham's first session with the guys as he was there and meeting with the team, and I got to sit in on the team meeting as he spoke with everyone about expectations and about the kind of culture that they're going to create, and was overwhelmed with just how bought in everyone already is.
That's awesome, because if it's not good in the beginning, it's going to be bad later, and it's awesome now. And I think I get the sense that the Warriors are very hungry. First year in the playoffs, expected to be good, and we're pretty good. Last year, underwhelming with everything. Obviously, a coaching change epitomizes kind of the standard there. In comes Chris Latham, new coaching staff, and a new vibe, and a new season, and 3 new teams in the league. This feels fresh, and it feels good right now.
Well, I think the energy of having somebody like Zim lead the charge before Chris got here, he's played with the guys. He's bled with them. They know him. They trust him. They trust his process.
Ben's nickname is Zim because of Zimbabwe.
So yes, the first 2 years I knew him, I didn't know that his name was Ben because it was just Zim.
I didn't know it was Zim. There we go.
Yeah. Sorry, Ben. So Ben's done a great job of leading the way and being in touch with Coach Latham, planning out all the schedules, and then Sean and Pitts being able to take care of everything, And I sat in on a forward session where they were hitting the scrum sled, and they're going to need it, but there's some real power and structure in there already that technically, Sean, he's got them really firing on all cylinders in getting in and hitting it hard and really setting the expectation for what we're going to be at the scrum.
How good is this staff, by the way? I mean, if you could handpick types, right? You check all the boxes. All right, let's get one of the greatest players in the history of the game.
Right.
As the head coach. And the forwards coach. Oh, let's get the USA coach. Let's get the scrum half from the World Cup roster. Let's get a guy who scored the first try in Warriors history, who already has rapport, as you mentioned, and he has a nickname with the team. This is fantastic. I love the composition of this group, and I love that it's all coming together now that Chris Latham's here.
Not even just like where they've been, but their personality types gel really well together, obviously. Latho's a real laid-back, kind of easygoing guy. He's going to be big on the accountability. He's going to be big on the hard work and holding people's feet to the fire. But he really is a pretty chill and kind of relaxed kind of guy. And you get somebody, you turn around, the complete opposite end of that is Sean Davies. Who,
I was going to say, who's the fired up guy?
Like you need to ask who the fired up guy is.
My old roommate.
The 9, the scrum half, the stereotypes. I mean, he does not stop talking and he does not stop moving. And plus, again, the guys know his pedigree, so they trust him and they trust what he brings to the table and his process. So, and then, you've got the very methodical, technical, Ben Nichols just won the scholarship. Spent some time.
What?
Zim.
You mean Zim? Oh,
Zim.
Yeah.
Spent some time overseas in the off season, in Europe, meeting with some of the biggest clubs and won that premiership coaching scholarship. And then you bring in a guy like Coach Pittman, who not only has the experience as a player, having played in a World Cup, but now having coached as well, a pretty good forward pack with the Eagles and the technical knowledge that he brings. And we obviously had him on the show, and
he was great.
And what a great low-key guy he is. But, he's one of those guys that when he speaks, he's got the reputation that you're going to listen. Yeah. Because you know where he's been and what he brings to the table.
And this is a big week for them, going down to Vegas. Hopefully the weather's a little bit better, right? And they're going to scrimmage a bunch with Rugby ATL, which is interesting because that's the first match. So both teams are going to get a little scouting report, and then it's going to finish with a scrimmage against Toronto, who was one of the better teams in the league. This is an awesome week.
Well, I mean, can we put an asterisk by everything Toronto does because they're basically the Canadian national light team? Yeah, I said it, Toronto. Don't at me, all right?
I hope the official account ats you.
Go ahead. Let me know, all right? I'm here. You know where to find me. At Life of Banks. Okay, we'll put it. Billy will put it right under the screen right here somewhere. If he doesn't, it'll be on here at the end. All right, we'll tag it here on the end.
Activate your Twitter.
It's up. The Twitter's activated as well now too. Yeah. I've got that all. I'll get that to you. Rugby ATL is going to be great. There's some familiar faces in that squad. They've got some experience. There's a couple former Utah players there with Jeremy leaving Utah and signing with Rugby ATL. So I think those hit outs are going to be great for both teams to kind of see where they're at. It's that first bit of contact and the first real hit out to see, where you measure up and how you stand up. Are you going to roll over in those tense moments? I think they're running 3 20-minute phases of play there. So they'll run a lot. I mean, you'll see a lot and settle in through the first jitters and get into a good run of play in 20 minutes of rugby. It's a lot of rugby. And so to be able to play in 3 different periods of that, I think will be a good showing for the guys to see how they measure up.
Yep, we'll get a sense of kind of where they're at. And under a month to go, so still 3 weeks after this week to kind of figure it out. But then it's a long haul. It's a 16-week season. Even in the beginning, if there'll be a feeling out period with a new head coach and everything.
It's going to be tough. I mean, what these guys have to do starting 6 weeks basically on the road. Even though they play in Vegas week 2, that's technically a home game for us. Right. Even though we're not on our home ground. On the road for the first 6 weeks is going to be an absolute haul. But if they can come back from that with some good, tough, hard-fought wins, when we start to make that first homestand, you're going to see a team that's energized and you're going to see a brand of rugby that I think is going to be more akin to what Warriors Nation was used to seeing in their first season. Good sideline to sideline rugby. Some of that flamboyance that we were used to seeing when you see guys like Tanata Lauti get into space. When you see guys like, obviously, Fetz Vanikolo get into some space. Some of the big forwards that we've got that can run with the ball in hand. And some of the additions to the team as well with some of the big South Africans that are here and what some of those guys can do in space. It's going to be exciting to see.
Now, your Toronto Arrows were on the road the first 8 weeks last year and then had 8 home matches. Your thoughts as now Toronto is still watching this, of course.
Why'd you have to say your Toronto? Like, they, like this is all of a sudden a personal vendetta. Look, full credit to them. What they've been able to do in Toronto has been great. The technical savvy of that team is probably the standard to be set in the league. Obviously, everybody's chasing Seattle as far as wins and championships, but what the platform that Toronto has to build on and what the Arrows have done really is technically good rugby. They're as good a coached squad as there is, and any game against them is never going to be an easy game.
Yeah, and they had to go on the road, like you're mentioning. Hey, 6 on the road.
Right.
So it's been done, made the playoffs, right? And you mentioned Seattle. Everyone's chasing Seattle. Who do you feel like's the best team in the league going? Do you feel like it's San Diego? I feel like it's San Diego versus Seattle right now.
That's kind of the rivalry that's developed. Seattle, obviously, the standard everybody's measured. When you win back-to-back championships like that,
got to be dethroned.
The additions that San Diego has put in, obviously in the midfield. Don't be surprised when we see Colorado in the mix early, hanging 40 points on guys. The additions that they have there with one of my favorite players of all time, Rennie Ranger. You've got guys like Will Gania in there. Guys that can play ball.
Big time additions.
I mean, some big time additions, some big names, a lot of experience. Don't sleep on a team like Colorado, for as much as I don't want to give them any credit for anything either. But that being said, if you look at the playmakers that the Utah Warriors have, we've got the skill and the determination and the ability to weather a storm 6 weeks on the road. The talent 100% is there. So it'll be exciting to watch and to see the discipline match the ability. And if the discipline can match the ability on the pitch, we're gonna have a great first homestand.
I'm stoked to watch the Warriors.
Seattle Seahawks not making the playoffs mean that Seattle's going to struggle this year.
Seattle Seahawks.
You think that's a foreboding sign?
Seattle lost earlier this week. My Seahawks.
Oh, your Seahawks now.
Yeah, my Seahawks. Your Arrows, my Seahawks. Yeah.
I don't have a team in it.
I thought I was over it until you brought it up.
I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan.
Are you really?
Football, so I ain't got a leg to stand on in this argument.
Exactly. Well, you had a 30-30 this year.
Yeah, that's the second 30, though, is not really something to share when you throw 30 picks in a year.
34-30. Yeah. Chiefs fan? Nice. Okay, our player spotlight tonight is perhaps the starting scrum half. We'll see. Dwayne Polataivao, 5'8", 202. Samoan international, certainly a connection with Chris Latham and Manu Samoa at the World Cup there. Played for the provincial side Auckland Rugby Union last season with Doncaster Knights in England. Warriors coach Chris Latham was an assistant coach with Manu Samoa. That team beat Russia in the World Cup. So this is a guy that comes in who was first capped in 2016, played the World Cup in 2019. Could be right away a leader and that number 9 for the Warriors.
It's one of those key spots, obviously, you want to fill. It's obviously they've got their eyes on him to take that starting number 9 jersey. But you're talking about a guy that's played all the way through the secondary schools level in a very competitive system in New Zealand. Was it Pepakura? Is that where he played? Sure. Or Pekarenga? It was Pepakura, one of the P's, one of the Pakas. He played at one of those schools, well-respected school, good program, good heritage, and then to obviously play through the provincial level in Auckland. And I think he played for Coach Umanga there. And so he's got a lot of the experience and the rugby IQ. And if you watch his highlights from the Samoa games, he's a guy that's got great vision. On top of having good size for a number 9, he's bigger. He's not like a Faf de Klerk or an Aaron Smith from New Zealand and South Africa, respectively. He's bigger, but he still moves quickly. He's decisive with the ball. He's quick at the breakdown, and he sees the field really well. He has no problems just turning and switching on a moment's notice, darting up through the gaps. He's a really skilled player, not just with his hands, but with his head.
We're looking forward to watching him play throughout the season. We do want to mention the Utah Warriors are here to to support emotionally what's happening with all the bushfires in Australia, certainly close to home with head coach Chris Latham, but physically as well. There's a new shirt, Warriors for Australia, that you can buy now. All the proceeds go to the New South Wales Rural Fire Service, fighting those bushfires in Australia. Already a great response from you, Warrior Nation, for this. So if you are interested, you can go to the Utah Warriors Twitter account, at Warriors Rugby UT, right? And buy a shirt and donate in that way if you'd like. Certainly devastating in Australia. This is a way to show some support. And Chris Latham, there was a video put out by the Warriors this week. He's been overwhelmed by the response of people here in Utah responding to what's going on there.
I think it's one of those signs of like the compassion, the things that bind us all together. You know, at the end of the day, you know, the humanity and the compassion that we have for each other individually is the tie that binds. We love this great sport. It's Australia obviously being one of the landmark nations as one of the leaders in our sport, but to see the rugby community come together and not just have an interest in Coach Chris as he comes in and gets settled, but for the country as a whole, I think it's a great gesture. The shirt looks great too. It's going to be something you're going to be able to wear for a long time.
Yeah, hoping for the best with everyone involved there. Okay, Rugby 101's a regular on the Warriors cast. Last time we talked about the forwards, so let's talk about the backs. We already talked about potential starting scrum half for the Warriors, but let's talk about number 9, the scrum half. So kind of the quarterback. What's his role on a rugby team?
He's your little general. He's the one that's going to restart play from a tackle.
Does it always have to be a little guy? Has there ever been is there a 6'4" scrum half that exists?
I mean, it's the stereotypical body type. Like somebody built like me, not gonna play 9. Okay. Not that I haven't in a game before, but it's not something typically. I mean, you have to have a certain physical type to be able to play that position. A lot of running. 9s typically cover more ground than just about any other player on the field over the course of an 80-minute rugby game. They'll run upwards of 7 or 8 miles in an 80-minute match. The average player will run 6 miles and change in a match, I believe is the statistic on it.
Wow.
But a 9 will run considerably more than that because they're at every single breakdown,
right.
At every tackle. When that ball comes out the back, your scrum half is the one that restarts play, either to play it to the forwards again or to connect with his number 10 with the fly half.
How much do you run in a match?
We're going to use the term run incredibly loosely if we're talking about anything that I've played in the last probably 5 to 7 years.
2 or 3 miles? What are we talking about?
I vigorously jog as much as I can in any match that I play in now. Yes, vigorously jog.
Soft J, I think is the way. Yeah.
The 9 is the equivalent of the setter in football.
Right, the setter, the quarterback. Exactly. Okay, number 10, the fly half. You mentioned it. Number 9's best friend. One of the better playmakers, sometimes the kicker, right?
Traditionally, he's been the kicker, and in the modern game now, that's changed quite a bit. Your number 10 usually has the flashiest pair of boots on the field. They usually have a really fancy hard part in their hair. They wear a lot of hair gel.
Wait, so I could be a fly half? Is that what you're saying?
Look, with that little half pompadour thing you got there,
half pompadour?
What is that? It's like a side part pompadour you got going, right, Jerem? Is that what that is?
That's a pretty accurate description.
It's very dapper. Yeah, you know, if you put pomade in your hair, chances are you could play number 10 pretty easily.
Guilty as charged.
That's the kind of guy, though. He's going to be in constant communication at the number 10 spot with your number 9 to either call for the forwards to crash another ball and suck the defense in more, or when he starts to see the gaps open up in the back line, he's the one that's going to call for it and put it into your centers in the right gaps and attack the right lanes or kick the ball away. He's the player that's usually going to find touch on the sideline to relieve pressure if their back's against the goal line, or that's the type of player that will usually put like a low grubber kick through for the back line to run onto, depending on the position in the field. That's a guy that's always got to have his head up. He's got to know where every player is on the field, not just on his side, but the opponent's as well. The IQ of the player playing number 10 is got to be through the roof.
I couldn't have played.
That's got to be the smartest guy on the field.
Then I couldn't have played fly half. Yeah. Visually, yes.
Well,
but physically,
you got the hair.
Yeah.
You got that.
It starts there.
Might be the only thing.
Okay.
Halfway there.
11 and 14, the wings. Speed. Good decision making. A lot of one-on-one sometime. Try scores typically.
These are guys that, I mean, if you look at our wingers, if you look at somebody like Tanata Lauti, you're talking about a guy that usually has the ability to make something out of nothing. Lots of times they're working with less space than the centers would be, but they've got to finish. Those are your guys that, it's their job to put points on the board at the end of the day. And typically you'll have a speed guy in your 14 jersey, and you'll have a strength guy in your 11 jersey. That's kind of changed more in the modern game now, where, your guys on the wings are like a free safety or a cornerback, really a free safety in the NFL. You're talking about guys that are 6'2", 6'3", can run like a 4.5, 40-yard dash. Guys with a lot of speed and a lot of power and the size to go along with it. I think you see just about every good English Premier League team right now has an absolute wrecking ball of a Fijian winger on the outside. It started with guys like Joeli Venderi back in the day. Jonah Lomu, of course, the prototype winger. But guys like Doug Howlett for New Zealand on the other side of that. So many great rugby players. You look at Johnny May in England and some of the other guys that aren't that typical bruiser out on the wing, but have the speed and have the pace. And the biggest thing is, got to have a nose for the try line. Got to know where you are, and you got to dot down for points.
12 and 13, the inside and outside centers. And in year one, the Utah Warriors had the best center in the league in Polataivao, who's in the premiership now. He was awesome.
Just scored his first try for Quins.
Pretty cool.
Shouts out to Paul. What's up, boy?
On his
first start, too.
Pretty cool.
And it was absolutely fantastic. Great to see that out of Paul.
3-4.
And Paul's built like a prop. Okay, he runs at the center position, but Paul's built like a prop and always has been, even since his days in college. But it's great to see a Utah guy go and get that experience, and props to him for it. The 12 is usually your battering ram in the center position, but your 13 is really that guy's got to do everything. That's usually the best defensive player on the team. He's got to cover two gaps, and usually he's covering the opposing center and the winger on that side of the field. So your centers, your 12 and 13 are, as every position is, crucial. But the chemistry between those two, especially on defense, has to be locked in.
And the last position, fullback, the number 15, the last line of defense, got to be a great decision maker, great kicker.
Great kicker, and I think the experience of somebody, obviously that's where Chris Latham played. That's where he, made his hay. That's the experience that he has playing at that position and transforming that position. Somebody like around that same time, you could look at somebody like a Christian Cullen that was that playmaker that knew when to come up from the back as kind of that roving player and insert into the attack, and then come back and cover on defense again, and know when to make those tackles and when to. It's a big decision-making position. It really is your safety net on defense. They've got to know where the wingers are and shift quite a bit. So it's really a dynamic position. You look at somebody like Ben Smith for New Zealand, who changed the way that fullbacks score in open play. Just his intuitiveness to be able to play in open field and just find the try line, second to none.
That's awesome. Okay, Rugby 101. That's the backs for today. Okay, season ticket deals will be announced soon, as well as some single game ticket options. Stay with Warriors Rugby on social media, and of course right here on the Rugby Cast for the latest deals. Our next guest, this is going to be fun. A man with 40 international tries to his name, second most ever for the Wallabies, as you mentioned, Banksy, a professional and international player whose career spanned 14 years. He was named Super Rugby Player of the Year in 2000, 2003, 2004, one of the greatest fullbacks to ever play the game. Most recently, he was coaching in Japan with NTT Docomo Red Hurricanes and with Manu Samoa in the World Cup. He is the new head coach of the Utah Warriors. His name is Chris Latham.
Regan again. Latham, he's there.
All right, Chris, let me be one of the first to welcome you to Utah. How's it been so far?
Yeah, it's been awesome. What a beautiful place. It's picturesque. It's like every corner I look around, or every time I turn my head, it's like a postcard from somewhere. So I'm really loving it. Obviously it's time now to focus on the rugby. Now I've been in awe of the landscape, but again, been here a week, been just sitting back and watching the boys do their trade and get stuck in, and it's been fantastic. It really has been inspiring to see these guys get stuck in, see them keen for the season, and and see them really enthused about turning around what was disappointing from them last year.
Let's dig into that team just a little bit. But when did this opportunity surface, and why did you decide to take it?
Yeah, pretty late in the year. I obviously been in at the World Cup with Samoa as an assistant coach with them, and I think it was the last week of the World Cup, and I got a phone call saying would I be interested in the possibility of coming to the US and coaching. And obviously, yeah, the opportunity comes. You never say no. You want to explore where that will go, and then really heard nothing for it for about it would have been nearly a month, 4 or 5 weeks. And then all of a sudden I got a call out of the blue saying, that phone call we had 4 or 5 weeks ago, well, there's an opportunity in Utah as a head coach. And it's certainly after about that, it moved really quickly from there. It was about trying to get the deal done, finding out about what was needed and what was required, obviously from a coaching staff point of view, playing roster, and then it was getting stuck into the damn visa saga to try and get over here as soon as possible. But
little did you know that'd be the hardest part. Right?
It was indeed. But we're here now, very happy, and loving it.
And this was sight unseen. You hadn't even been to mainland USA. You hadn't been to Utah. So why was this the team in the US that you wanted to come to?
Yeah, for me, life is about creating memories and journeys, and we've moved a lot, and that's the beauty I love about this sport. It's an inclusive sport. It doesn't matter ethnically where you're from or what you do. It doesn't matter about physically your size, small, big, medium. And again, it allows you to travel the world, and it gives you opportunities where a lot of either work opportunities as far as business goes or other sports give you. And that's the uniqueness, I guess, of rugby. And, it's taken me all around the world. So when this came up, Utah, Salt Lake City, USA, ski fields, ski lakes, best riding. Great rugby. Got to keep coming back to the rugby.
It was like 7th in that list.
Yeah. It just kept ticking boxes after box after box. And again, the opportunity really. Kimball Kajar, he really did a fantastic job selling the place to me, to the point where I thought he was probably telling too many fibs, considering how good he was explaining how the opportunities and how good it is really here. And to be fair, when I got here and now I've been here a week, he was spot on. So again, just the way it was sold to me was fantastic, and it just looked like a great opportunity.
And now the Major League Rugby season is upon us in a couple of weeks, but here we are with the U.S. This is the 3rd year of this league. The U.S. has always been an interesting place in the rugby world, this kind of sleeping giant, that discussion. Was that a part of your motivation at all, was to get a part of this, kind of see what's going on here with rugby?
Yeah, even living in Australia, it's one of those areas, countries where even back in Australia you think, geez, if America could really sort out their backyard, that'd be phenomenal at rugby. And when you get to learn a little bit how the MLR started, and it's only 3 years in, and you see the comparisons to that and to what I've seen in Japan, probably 15 years ago when they first started out, everything is very similar, across the board. So again, to have that knowledge, to be able to be given the opportunity to come in here and to be a head coach, I'm very grateful for. And, really looking forward to making sure that knowledge I have of where I've seen the Japan market, the mistakes that teams made, obviously the advancements that teams made and the positive influences they had on the game. I really thought, well, I think I can make a positive contribution to not only Utah rugby, but American rugby in itself as well. So, and that, again, that was the motivation behind it.
What are some of those things you feel you can add to the game in Utah and in the United States, given your experience from Australia?
Yeah, I guess as a rugby player, when I first started, I knew very little, if not anything, about rugby. And every skill that I got, I learnt. I had to learn those skills. And anyone in sport knows, or anyone in business knows, the harder you work, the better you get, the luckier you get. And, I worked damn hard on a lot of things that I needed to work on to get to where I wanted to get to. And that was to be the best international footballer in the world. And to do that, there was a lot of hours, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, on polishing up, searching for people to be able to, across all sports, to be able to give me the skills required to do that. And for me, being able to pass that on, to be, I guess now, to give back to rugby. Again, I'll keep coming back to it. I've been very blessed with what rugby has provided myself and my family, not only financially, but also spiritually. Being involved with Samoa, being able to experience the cultures that come with coaching and being around the Samoan heritage and Samoan people. Obviously, traveling the world and going to Fiji, across to Europe, and seeing all those things. So again, having those experiences, I just want to give those back to the young and up and coming players, and I guess enthuse them and really give them a sense of what rugby can really provide if you really put your head down and work hard. And I guess that's what I really want to bring here, is a really hard work ethic to this team that's willing to fight every minute of every second of every game. And if we can do that, we'll work hard in the background with our polishing our skills and developing there. And hopefully, at the end of the day, we'll give the fans what they like to see, and that's a really entertaining game of rugby, because that's what rugby is.
Talking with Chris Latham, head coach of the Utah Warriors in his first season, coming up in a couple of weeks, which is very exciting. Let's talk about this coaching staff that will be along with you. How are you guys gelling, and how was it interacting with a 17-hour difference there in Australia until you got here a week ago?
Yeah, very, very stressful when you're looking at a 17-hour difference. By the time things had happened, I'm already a day ahead. I'm already at the end of my day.
You knew the future.
Yeah, I knew the future, and unfortunately, it still didn't help me too much. But I guess at the end of the day, it was difficult, but I must commend the coaching staff. Obviously, Sean Pittman, Sean Davies, Ben, Matt, the S&C coach. Again, everyone across the board here at Utah, they've done a fantastic job. Obviously, just being here a week watching the boys, the enthusiasm again, their willingness to put their body through a lot is phenomenal. It's not easy turning up each day and putting your body through what they've been putting them through. So again, I'm very appreciative of what they've done. They've done a great job, and now it's about coming in and making sure that we continue that. We continue to drive high standards, and we continue to drive a culture that's just going to keep providing an environment that these boys can, really enhance themselves and enhance their career in rugby.
Let's talk about the squad. So a lot of returners from a team last year that didn't win a lot of games, but was in some close ones there. And then a lot of new guys. What sticks out, I guess, about what you've seen from almost all the guys that are here right now?
Yeah, you've got a lot of guys that have been here quite some time, and of those guys that have been here over the few years have seen a lot of rugby and been in a lot of the good rugby programs. I mean, you've only got to look at Fetz. He's been around rugby for a very long time. He's been in this team 2-3 years now, I think. Mm-hmm. And it just amazes me how a guy like that, when you see a new young American kid come in, when we held a combine, I guess, mm-hmm. of I think there was about 50 guys came in. And I think it only took 5 or 6 days to fill that 50 to come in and try out. A guy came, a few young kids were pulled out of that. And to see Fetz in a group meeting call those guys out and get them involved and make them feel part of what is being a Utah Warrior and what it's about it's just amazing. And it shows it doesn't just show individual character, but it shows the character of what this Warriors team can be and should be. And for me, that really stood out as a point of difference of what I've seen, the difference between successful teams and teams that just don't quite get it. And, that was impressive.
Where are you at in terms of assessing the talent and how you want to use it with this team? Because it is early, you're trying to get guys in shape ready for the season.
Yeah, at the moment it is just about getting these guys in shape. If you look at the stats last year and you look at the games last year, I've looked over a lot. That first 30, 40, 50 odd minutes, Utah scored a lot of good tries and they played a really good brand of exciting rugby. Those guys, the players can play footy. They just didn't have the depth and the stamina to withhold a full 80 minutes. So again, it's about making sure these guys can withstand a high-intensity game for a full 80 minutes, because I've got no doubt they can play. When they've got ball in hand, there are players mixed in this group that naturally can find holes and naturally can play. So again, if we can at the moment, it's just about making sure we up their fitness, up their ability to withstand knocks. So again, big focus on strength and conditioning, prehab, rehab, making sure that we can really reduce our injury rate through the season. Once we've built that foundation, coming to Vegas, going to Vegas now is very exciting, because we get to scrimmage against Atlanta in 2 sessions and then have a game against Toronto at the end there on Saturday. So for me, that's where the assessment of the individuals will be and where they fit in the team and where I see them potentially being, and that's really exciting.
Vegas hopefully will have better weather than we have here. That'll be good for the guys as well.
I'm actually surprised at the weather. When I look from afar from Australia before I came, when you read it, and again I'm talking Celsius, I'm not quite up with the lingo of Fahrenheit yet, but when you're talking minuses in Celsius, I'm thinking that's cold. Like I'm thinking that's unbearable. I can't possibly go there, but it's a beautiful, dry type of cold where it's not chilling to the bone, and I actually love it. It's really nice. So, Vegas would be nice to get the singlet on and I guess get my tan back a little bit. But again, it'd be nice to get on some grass, run around outside, and be able to have that freedom.
How much will this week in scrimmaging with Rugby Atlanta, which is going to be, by the way, your first match here in a couple weeks, and then Toronto, who has made the playoffs last year. How much will this week determine who kind of is the starting 15 in the first game?
It will. It obviously goes to it. But again, I've been in a lot of teams now, and I know there's a lot of other factors that comes into when it's your first hit out. There's a lot of nerves. There'll be a lot of players that want to try and prove something, and the lungs are screaming for air. So I guess at the end of the day, I'm more looking for the guys that put on the paddock the processes and the things that we've been doing at training. They're the guys that I want to see. They're the things I want to see from the guys. Yeah, I want to see some individual brilliance when it's on to have it, without a doubt. We all want to see that. But it's the real detailed things that I'm really looking forward to seeing. How much of that detail that we've tried to put into them at the moment has really sunk in, that when the pressure's really on, when you're fatigued, you're tired, you've been bashed a few times, you've been hit, and you're really gasping for air and your brain's not thinking that quick, how much of that has really sunk in and become second nature.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing how it goes this week. We love interacting with social media on the Warriors Cast, so we have a few questions. Some people used hashtag Warriors Cast, some people weighed in on Instagram. So this first question is from Mayardley24 on Instagram. What goes into training someone to go from being just an athlete to a warrior?
A lot. A hell of a lot, to be honest. I mean, when you want to become a Utah Warrior, it's about turning up mentally, physically, day in, day out. It's about making sure not only are you physically ready, but you're mentally ready. It's about making sure that your diet's there. You've physically gone through and made sure that you've done your stretches, you've done your prehab, your rehab, you've seen your physios, and then then it's about getting on the field and doing the hard work. I mean, all that's the easy work. Then you've got to get on the field and do the hard work. And again, it's about making sure that you're able to withstand the pressures of training at a hugely high intensity, usually higher than what a game is, and being able to back that up every minute for consistently for roughly about an hour and 10 minutes. And again, when you just talk about it or you hear someone talk about it, you think, oh, yeah, I could do that. Doesn't seem too hard. How hard is it to turn up for an hour session a day? Trust me, it's hard. It's very difficult. And when you've got to do that day in and day out, it does take a toll on your body. So again, what you do off the field is probably more important than what you do on the field at this stage of the season.
Okay, Gabe Turner at the 11th Kid on Twitter used hashtag WarriorsCast. What type of preparation or drills are being used to improve defense? What will be more improved, line out or scrum? And has coach spent much time in the cold and snow? So let's start with defense.
Yeah, defense, for me, defense is just about basic principles and making sure that across the board, 1 to 15, everyone knows their role. If everyone knows their role around those principles, really, you shouldn't be presenting the opposition with any defensive holes. Once you've set those defensive principles and we're in place, making the tackle is probably 80% up in the head and 20% technique. If you're 80% willing to go in and smack someone as hard as you possibly can, and you've got your heads up and you've got your eyesight right, and you know exactly where you're going to hit them, as long as you're mentally prepared to hit them, then you'll hit them and you'll get the result you need. If you go in half-hearted and you're not really committed, that's when the mistakes come. That's where the injuries and the bad technique comes from. So, we've been working hard on those things.
And then line out or scrum, that conversation?
Yeah, set piece. Obviously, Sean Pittman's been doing a great job in that area. And again, it's about just making sure roles, responsibilities, knowing the calls. And again, all these kind of things are all off-field issues. They're the things that you want to make sure are down pat. You want to make sure that 100% that all the forwards know their movement roles. They all know where the jumper's going to be if you're a lifter, what your movement patterns are if you're a jumper or a lifter. And then at the end of the day, then you got to make sure your hooker's on point with all of it to get the ball to where you need it to be. So again, there's a lot of small, intricate movements that are required to making it all happen. But again, Sean's doing a great job to make sure that's on point when it comes to the season.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the cold and snow answer to that question.
There.
Yeah, getting there. James _53_3. Are the Warriors going to have the academy like they did last year? I know there's the Warriors Select and there's been the Combine. What's the plan there, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, a big thing for me, and again, coming from Queensland, the Queensland Reds, they've got one of the biggest, or the biggest in Australia, academy, and the academy there, Australian rugby pulls probably 60 to 70% of the talent in Australia out of the Reds academy.
Wow!
So again, they're things that are always in conversations with Kimball, the director of rugby, and Brandon, the director of rugby, and Kimball, the CEO, of where we want this program to go and where we want to see the Utah Warriors. So 100%, it is in the pipeline. It is something that we want to build and grow and start. But again, an academy is something that you just can't start on a whim and think that it's just going to build and grow. It's something that we need to make sure that when we launch it, it is going to start getting the rewards that we require straight away, because again, the financial setups of an academy are quite high. And, again, we just got to make sure that we've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, as they say, and make sure that's all fine. And then once we know that we're ready to launch, we want Utah to be the hub of American rugby and in the future. And if we can do that, then obviously the Warriors are in a good place.
Absolutely. At Casey Carlgren, can team mustaches become a requirement?
We could work on that. Yeah, sure. Probably keep me a little warmer. Yeah, we could work on that. I suppose that'd be good. Probably use that as a little bit of a as a team punishment or a reward for something. Yeah, we'll work on that.
Depends on the guy, right?
Yes.
John Cullen came in with a pretty wicked mustache.
John Cullen has a great mustache.
His mustache game is pretty legit.
Banksy says the mustache is good on John Cullen.
Well, there you go. So,
The dirtier, the better.
No,
right?
it's more Magnum PI than it is
Okay, that's
adult
awesome.
film stuff.
stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. K Panda 22. What's the biggest challenge for the team this season?
Yeah, I guess for us, it's making sure that we stay consistent. And consistent, I mean, for an 80-minute performance. So it's consistent in the lead up to the season, consistently building a good culture, consistently building good performances on the training field in our learning process, and then consistently putting good performances on week in, week out that are for an 80-minute game.
And we'll finish with this. Rich_691. How was it coaching Manu Samoa?
It was an amazing experience. I spoke briefly, obviously, about the culture, being involved in the culture and being immersed in it, especially coming from an Australian that hadn't experienced that type of culture. It was certainly an eye opener. It was just on a daily basis. My mouth was just open in awe of the things that I experienced. So again, from a cultural point of view, it was amazing. I learnt so much. From a playing point of view, again, and I'd say this to the boys, when I was coaching them, that when I was a player playing against Samoa, you knew you were going to get hit and you knew that it was going to hurt. And I just love the fact that these boys instinctively know how to play footy. Like, you just do not have to show them the basic of anything when it comes to rugby. It's just about getting them mentally to stay in the moment, to be able to execute what they can naturally do. And that for me was amazing. And it was something, again, it's something that I'll cherish, and it's something that I really appreciate that rugby provides as a sport.
And let's take a moment. The mic is yours to say whatever you want to Warriors fans to either come to the games or support the team now that you're the head coach.
Yeah, well, obviously I'd say to every Warriors fan, when we do get to our home games up and running, I hope to see you all out there. There's nothing better as a player than running out to a home supporting fan base. When it's loud and times are tough, it is the fans that get you through those tough times. And, these boys are putting in a lot of work, a lot of hard work. They are really working their butts off to make sure that this year is a success. So it would make me nothing prouder than to see these boys get the reward that they deserve, and that is to see the stadium packed, to be able to produce an exciting brand of rugby that, and I understand going to a rugby game when it's not just yourself, you are bringing your family, you are bringing your kids, your relatives, and things like that. That it does come expensive, and you want to go there to see a show, and that's something that I've seen across the board that our boys can deliver and will deliver. So again, get out, support us, and get involved, because again, that's something that I want to bring to the Warriors is the fact that I want our boys to interact with the fans. I want the fans to feel like they are a part of our family. The fans are a part of the Warriors family, and to experience that, you're going to have to get out and you're going to have to support us, because we will deliver.
Absolutely. And the Warriors fans were great the last couple of years. I expect them to be great again. Show up. You heard the man. Show up to Zions Bank Stadium in about a month and watch the Utah Warriors. Well, Chris, we appreciate your time. Welcome to Utah, and thanks for taking a few minutes with us.
I appreciate it, guys. Happy to be here.
How awesome is Chris Latham?
I mean,
It is so awesome.
living up to the legend status. I mean, just as a regular dude, but an absolute top tier athlete, and the experience, and you can just hear the excitement that he has for what Warriors Nation can become.
And I am so impressed that he took this job sight unseen. He had never been here, yet wants to be involved with USA Rugby in some capacity, and here it comes to Utah. And this is a huge opportunity for you, the fans, to be able to interact with Chris at the matches, meet him, and for him to have an impact on this team and community.
I know one of the biggest things for him, as I sat in his welcome meeting and he spoke to the team, one of the biggest things for him was the 4 pillars that we have as a team. Most organizations don't have that kind of structure to them, and they were all things that meant a great deal to him, with family, tradition, community, and respect, all key roles for his philosophy on the rugby field and for our philosophy as an organization. And so that was a big thing for him, and he's all about experiences and sharing those experiences with people. So to be able to bring his family to America to experience winter, because it's not something that they'd been through.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Very different.
Incredibly nice guy. And I look forward to getting to know him more as he continues through this first season here in Utah.
And we'll have him on the Warriors Cast throughout the season. It's going to be fun. That'll do it for us. Find us by searching Warriors Cast on YouTube, Facebook, SoundCloud, IGTV, Apple Podcasts, and now Spotify. Of course, you're watching or listening, so you found us, but share it with your friends that are getting into Utah Warriors rugby or Major League Rugby or rugby in general, and leave us a rating and review the podcast. That'll do it for Head Coach Chris Latham, for Banksy, for Billy the producer. I'm Jerem Jordan. Thanks for listening or watching the Warriors Cast.